So today I'm going to be talking about the Demon Awakens by Salvatore. This is the first book of the Demon Saga. I'm going to be doing a spoiler-free review. I'm going to be talking about the world building, the characters, the plot, the magic system, what I like, what I didn't like, and why, in my opinion, you should give this underrated series a try. Welcome to my channel. This is Nemours Book Nook. This is a place where I talk about fantasy, sci-fi, classics, or basically any book that has made a lasting impression on me, and I want to share it with the world. Right, so starting off with the world, this series takes place in the land of Corona. It is basically a universe world that Salvatore created by himself, unlike his other books in the Forgotten Realms series, The Legend of Drizzt. So this one is basically Salvatore's own. He can do whatever he wants with it, and that's, I think, what makes it so great. It is basically a chance for him to craft a world on his own and to try his hand at what people like Robert Jordan and Tolkien basically did. Getting into the meat of things, I really have to make a special mention of the prologue, because the prologue is, for me, what sort of sets the tone for the entire series. So this is a 7-book series. It's divided into 2 trilogies with one sort of a bridge novel in the middle. But what I think makes this prologue stand out so much is just it describes the awakening, basically, of the ancient evil, which is the antagonist of the series. The demon Dactyl, which is sort of a devil kind of figure, and it's just described in such a graphic and such an immersive way that it just really puts you into the mindset, puts you into sort of the atmosphere of the entire series. And yeah, it's described in detail. We also get some lore behind it, and of the last time it awakened before it was defeated, because this is sort of a reawakening. And yeah, the antagonist is established early, and it brings feeling of foreboding and setting the scene and atmosphere for the rest of the series. Right, so getting into the main plot, the plot of this book revolves around the awakening of the Dactyl and sort of the people of Corona becoming aware that the evil is loose again, because it hasn't been for many years now, and people have kind of forgotten about them, and they are not quick to believe that it could come again, and that their lives are yet again in danger. But yeah, we also get sort of the Dactyl gathering its armies, and we follow our 3 main characters, who are Brian Wyndon, Josephone Alt, and Evelyn Debris. Just sort of a warning here, the names in these books can be a bit of a handful at first, so yeah, don't be don't be discouraged. You get used to them, but they're pretty creative, I would say, and some of them are pretty hard to pronounce. So Brian and Pony, we have Pony, Josephone, we call her Pony basically during the entire series. Brian and Pony, they are children from the village of Dondalis, which is sort of deep in this forested area of the map called the Timberlands. With they have a budding romance, basically. The main romance in the series and in the book is between them. An attack on their village early on leaves them orphaned, an attack by goblins, which are sort of the equivalent of orcs, as it were. I mean, I know there are goblins in other series as well, but Salvatore kind of has blended the goblin and the orc in one in this series. They're the personification of evil, basically. And so goblins raid their village, and they are the only 2 survivors, but neither knows that the other one has survived. So we kind of start to follow their separate stories right now. O'Brien he's taken by the elves, by the 12 Alfar, who want to train him as a ranger. So basically the elves, they're really not very used to meddling in the affairs of humans. They don't really want, they're a secretive race because they were wiped out in the past, and basically they want to keep to themselves, protect their safety and so on. And but every so often they take in a human to make sort of an emissary between the humans and the 12 Alfar, so they call them rangers. So you can see kind of the Drizzt analogies already popping here. But yeah, and so O'Brien has the role of a protector of the people, and a proxy between the 12 Alfar and the people. This training is described as very hard, very gruesome, but it turns him into a very powerful warrior. And the 12 are give him gifts of the people and so on, and they name him a friend of the elves. As to Pony, she has basically severe PTSD from the attack, and she has blocked her memory. Basically, the part of her that remembers the attack and so on has been blocked off, and she can't remember anything. She can't even remember her own name. So she's taken in by these his family in one of the major cities in the world, Palmaris. And they give her a name, and they basically just treat her as their own daughter, but she's not even aware herself of what has happened to her. Slowly she kind of begins to get back the memories and so on, and she gets mixed in with the nobility in the big city, so we kind of get this viewpoint of the big city, of the nobles, of the bustle, as opposed to sort of the lifestyle in the forest that O'Brien gets under the tutelage of the elves. And then we have our third main character that I mentioned in the start, and that is Avalon Debris. Basically, he is a monk, so we have this church, the Abelican Church, who basically control the magic in this world. I'll get to that in a bit. And so he's an upstart monk. He's very devout, he's very pious, he's very sort of devoted to his god, and he wants to do good, and he goes to this monastery, which is the monastery of Saint-Mère d'Abel, which is basically the biggest monastery of the Abelican Church out there, and he's going to join the order of the monks. And he quickly discovers that there is a seed of budding corruption in the order, so his morals and his integrity are constantly put to the test as he learns the magic and learns to use it and learns how the monks kind of want to conserve it for themselves. We get introduced to the magic system through him here, but yeah, he gets to question a lot of what he believes in, a lot of sort of the good and the evil in the world. That is about Avalon, and he's also the first one to actually notice the rise of the Till, which ties him into the main plot. So the plot follows these three characters, and I'm talking about this book specifically, and their adventures as they get caught up in the sort of the events of the world and the rise of the Ductil and its armies, who are basically getting ready to take over the world. Another thing I want to mention is we have these interludes. If you've read any of the Legend of Driss books, you know that Salvatore likes to make these interludes between different parts of the books that are like letters, basically, that the main character writes to someone. So in the Driss books cases, it's Driss. Here in this book, it's O'Brien. And it is here where he really explores these kind of deep philosophical topics, and where he kind of puts out the big questions of the world, like good versus evil, and questions about morality, and questions about life, and about whether they're doing the right thing, and so on, and just the struggles that they're going through. So these interludes, they're really sort of the meat of the philosophical bent of these books, which is something that I really love. Okay, so moving on with the characters, I'm going to be covering them in a couple of words. We have O'Brien first, he's the main character in this book at least. He is the sort of lawful good character. And he has a lot of analogies with Driss from some of his other novels, him being a ranger and all. And he's sort of a person who can't really accept the horrors of the world. He tries to protect people and tries to do the right thing. So basically the proverbial good guy. He's very powerful, and he's interesting to read about because he plays this role of a link between the 12 Far and the humans, and we kind of get to see their conflicting viewpoints and how both races see the world. Yeah, it's interesting to see him try to play the part of an emissary, of a link between the two races. Moving on with Pony, we have, she's a more neutral character, so she's very conflicted. She's dealing with a lot of trauma, stuff like PTSD, loss. She's definitely more prone to kind of breaking down and just murdering people that have wronged her and stuff like that. She's not evil per se, but she's more vengeful, more sort of prone to just giving herself over to her emotions. She's generally a more complicated character, definitely, and she's not exactly either good or evil. And then we have Evelyn. So Evelyn is also a good character, even though he kind of gets pretty disappointed and horrified at the corruption he views in the world, and that kind of doesn't have the best reaction to it. But he's honorable, he's pious, he's idealistic, so he kind of visualizes a world where everyone is, devout and everyone is good, and especially the people in the monastery. And he kind of really gets disenchanted with all that, with people who are supposedly holy. And yeah, it kind of takes him some time to find his bearings and find the holy path again by the end of the book. We have a couple of characters that are supporting cast. For example, we have the two main 12 Far in the book. So those are Joraviel and Tuntun. They are sort of playing the roles of mentor characters. We get some insight in the way the 12 Far see the world, how their society works, and Joriel is more of a rebel type character, so cares more about humans than the average 12R does, and he is kind of ready to forsake some of the tenets of his people in order to help them. So he kind of goes against the 12R understanding about the world and so on, especially when it relates to humans and it relates to our main characters. Then we have Tuntun, who is kind of the stereotypical harsh mentor character that O'Brien really dislikes initially because she is part of his training and she really demeans him. She really kind of makes him realize that, no, not exactly realize, but wants to make him feel like he's 12R and 12R, which is basically not 12R. So she constantly reminds him that he's human and he won't be the same as them. But yeah, she's also just pretty fun and quippy. By the end of the book, they really do get a bit of she helps them and really kind of her character grows a lot. Then we have Brad Warden, who he's a centaur, who kind of they don't really see initially, and he's sort of this kind of entity, more of this kind of, well, not exactly god, but yeah, for the spirit. And he's basically the wise old man type of character, but he does get some pretty good development as well. All right, so that was about the characters. Okay, so moving on with the magic system, which is my favorite part of these books. It revolves around attuning to and channeling precious stones or gemstones. Basically the monks, they wield this magic and it comes from their god. It is a gift from their god, so they consider themselves the chosen ones to be the only ones to kind of wield the secrets of the gemstone magic. So it's a bit of a sort of a cult thing going on. And so there are different types of gemstones. Basically you can use, for example, rubies for summoning forth fire. Then we have the cat's eye for sight. You have the tiger's paw you can use to get the properties of a tiger, basically become as strong and lean and fast as a cat. You have lodestone or magnetite for pulling things towards you. You have the hematite, which is arguably the most powerful of the stones for soul walking, so you can walk out of your own body and possess others or stuff like that. And you can also use it for healing. You have serpentine for lightning. And also an interesting thing is that the powers of the stones can be combined to form even more powerful magic. And yeah, so the gemstones, as I said, they're gifts from their god. They fall from the sky, and this book kind of describes how they get the gemstones, how they prepare them, and so on. It is just has a lot of potential. There's a lot of combinations possible and a lot of interesting properties that these stones have as the series progresses on. Avalon is very strong with these stones, and yeah, we get to see him use them, and it is really nice, really cool. So a bit about the world building and the world itself. Basically the world, it is your standard fantasy world with your oceans, your rivers, your forests, your lakes, your volcanoes. It is a pretty expansive map. You have them in the start of the books. We have a couple of kingdoms and races in this world. We have the humans, as I've already mentioned, and then the sort of quote-unquote bad guys. We have the goblins, which are, yeah, as I've mentioned already, they're kind of like a combination of a goblin and an orc in other fantasy series. And we have the Poweries, which actually, this is one of the only series I've seen where dwarves are actually evil. So you don't have actually good dwarves, you have evil dwarves, and they're sort of these diminutive creatures that they wear these berets, and every time they kill something or someone, they dip their beret in their blood, and the redder the beret is, the more people they've killed, and sort of that's how they rise in rank in their society. Then we have giants, or yeah, basically just big, large brutes that are really strong and take multiple people, multiple weapons, and so on to kill. The goblins, they are kind of the representation of the pure evil. So they're the goblins, parodies giants. They are the minions of the Till, and the goblins are kind of Tolkienian in nature in the sense that they are just pure evil. They don't really have any redeeming factor. And also one of the interesting things in the philosophical sort of discussions in the interludes, we have that nobody feels guilty about killing goblins because they are pure evil. So you're just basically destroying pure evil. And yeah. And then we have the 12R, which are the races and more races that come about later in the series that I can't really mention. But yeah, 12R, as I said, elves. They're these sort of really small creatures that can fly with wings. So they're kind of akin to fairies, I suppose. But yeah, they do have magic of their own as well. They do use some gemstone magic. And yeah, those are the races and the world. Okay, so having covered all that, what did I like about this book? So, first of all, I would say that the pacing of the book is really good. It doesn't meander at all. There's no sort of long-winded descriptions, and there's a lot of action in this book. It is about 600 pages long, and sort of a mass paperback edition. Yeah, so the pacing is really good. I wasn't bored at any time. The sort of the interludes are my favorite part as well. They are the specialty of Salvatore, as I mentioned. They're present in the Driss books as well, and I really like sort of the philosophical ideas behind them, and just kind of thinking about the world, thinking about the morality of certain things. The story is pretty self-contained in this book, which for me is actually something pretty important in a first book of a series. I really love it when they're self-contained. Other examples of this would be like Eye of the World, the Wheel of Time, book 1, and the Mistborn, the Final Empire. I really love when books, first books in a series are self-contained, but you know that there's potential for a lot more. Also, something that I kind of like in this, even though I don't usually like it in other books, so it's a bit weird, but the story is really, and the world is really very realistic. So the character struggles are real. The world is not exactly grimdark, but sort of grimdark, in the sense that you see the impending doom, and there's no one that's really extremely powerful. There's no one that just kind of goes around and one-shots everything. It's really just the characters are down to earth. They're realistic, and you can see that it'll be a struggle, trying to defeat the Dictyl. The magic system is amazing. I love that. I mean, it's sort of mostly a soft magic system, so there are some rules to it, but yeah, the potential is basically limitless. And also the point about the Dictyl being born out of human sin, so I'm not sure if I mentioned this, but the basic idea is that the Dictyl awoke because of the corruption inside of humans' hearts, and that is what awakens it in the beginning, awakens the demon, as it were. I love the characters. They are very nuanced, they are interesting, they are real, you can identify with their struggle. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention the action scenes. Salvatore is famous for his very detailed action scenes where he describes every move, every movement, every action scene in very big detail. And I love that. I just love being able to visualize myself being there, following these people and these monsters as they fight, with their specific moves and their specific jumps and all that. It's really cool. Now, some things I did not like, even though there are not a lot of these things, but gotta be fair after all. I can't sort of give only glowing reviews. So yeah, one of the things that sort of, as it relates to modern fantasy, because these books, they're written in, like, I think the end of last century, but these, the plot and sort of the good versus evil, the classic good versus evil, can be a bit Tolkienian in nature. So obviously I don't have a problem with that, but a lot of modern fantasy kind of revolves around these more nuanced villains, around these more mental health topics, even though we do have those things here, but this is mostly classic fantasy. Okay, so you have the good versus evil. The evil guy is just, he's a bad guy. It doesn't really have all that much of a complicated story. His motives are pretty one-dimensional. But yeah, so I don't personally have a problem with that, but I know that some people who really love modern fantasy really want something more out of their villains these days, so it's something to be warned about. In the first book, the world isn't explored that much, which gets addressed in the next book, so I'm not sure if it's actually a negative, but yeah, a negative for the book, not for the series. O'Brien's character could be a bit too good, a bit too of a goody two-shoes kind of character, so these characters, I know that they can sometimes become a bit boring. Another thing, which is sort of a very kind of scraping the edge here, but the names can be hard to pronounce at the start. I know that can turn some people off, and there are some pretty weird names, but I don't know, I love them, and you get used to them. It's when you read them so often. Not sure if there's a pronunciation guide, but yeah. And then, yeah, as I already mentioned, the villain might be a bit too generic. But at least in this book, well, we can see what happens after that. So, yeah, those are the things that I don't necessarily like about this book, even though it's, yeah, just trying to get something out there. Okay, so that was my review for the Demon Awakens by R. Salvatore, one of my absolute favorite books. It is a 5-star in my book. And yeah, thanks for watching. If you like this content, like and subscribe. I'm going to be trying to make reviews on the next books as well. which will obviously going to be spoiler-free for that book, but will probably contain spoilers for this one, for previous books, because it's a bit hard to do spoiler-free reviews of later books in a series. So I'd really love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Did I make you want to read this book? What did you like, what you didn't like, and whether you would give it a shot? And also what you're currently reading, because I'm always on the hunt for new and exciting books. So yeah, thanks, and until next time.